Hey everybody, it's been a minute, but I figured I'd bring you up to speed on everything that's been happening. So needless to say, I got out, but the story of how it happened is wild. So there we were, me and the little potato dude, just waiting for the security dude to call us back when the little guy got chatty again. "Do you think he can get us out?" he asked, not seeming sure. "I mean, if anyone can get us out, it'd be him, right?" "What do you base this on?" I had to think about that for a minute. "Well, he's security. It's their job to protect people, right? If anyone should be able to get us out, it should be them." It was the little dude's turn to think, something he did by slowly breathing in and out as his body puffed up and shrank again. "I will have to trust in your experience on this matter. The only thing I know about security is that they give people tickets and yell at people for parking where they shouldn't." I laughed. Sounded like some of Doc C's assistants had run afoul of campus security a few times. What do you know?" I asked suddenly, kind of interested in what this little guy had collected. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I mean, like, you take in all your knowledge through people's thoughts, right? What kind of information do you have? Even if you could get out of that tank, what would you do? Could you take care of yourself out there?" The creature seemed to consider it for long enough that I wondered if he was going to answer me or not. He mostly just floated there, bobbing in his little tank like one of those gross toys I used to see at KB when I was a kid. I turned back to my phone thinking I'd struck a nerve, and when he spoke up, it made me jump a little bit. "I know lots of things academical. I can solve great mathematical problems, decipher scientific formulas that would leave your peers drooling, and compose written works that would rival the greatest minds of this and many other times. What I cannot do, however, is remove my own lid, take myself from this place, or, I'm coming to doubt, breathe the air that you take for granted. I do not know these things for a fact, but I've come to suspect them heavily. I may need your help more than I suspect. As little as I know, you want to help me." I shrugged, not needing long to think about it. The little potato dude was gnarly looking, but he and I had grown a little close, despite myself. If he helped me out here, I wouldn't mind helping him do the same, even if it meant finding him a place in the world. That's what you did for someone who helped you. At least, that's how it always been for me. We would see if I still felt that way when the time came, but as far as I was concerned, I was as much in his debt as he was in mine. I had just opened my mouth to say as much when the phone rang from the corner of the card table. The number wasn't one I had saved in my phone, so I figured it must be the security dude. "Took you long enough," I said, picking up the phone and realizing it was just about an hour since I spoke to him. "I mean, I can go back to my desk and let you manage on your own if you'd prefer." He must have taken my silence for acknowledgement of my error, and I heard keys jingling as he hopefully tried to open the door to the R. Ashley Science Building. "So, where are you then? I don't see any footprints in the dust that's laying pretty thick everywhere, so it's not like I can trail you." I looked at the little potato dude, needing his help for this part. I'd always been blindfolded when the doc brought me down here, so I was next to no help. The little dude closed all his eyes for a minute, contemplating his next move, and when he opened the largest pair again, he sounded sure of his directions. "Tell him to go down the hall and find the 5th door on the left." "Go down the hall and find the 5th door on your left." "All right," the security guy said. I could hear his footsteps over the phone as he walked. "Hey, you said it was just you in there. Who's that I hear with you?" I started to tell him it was the experiment I had told him about, but decided against it. "Just a friend. We're both trapped in here and need to get out." He said, stopping suddenly and taking his keys out. The jingling over the phone was maddening, but as he slid it in, I heard the creak of an old door and found I remembered something. I remembered walking 30 steps. I started counting just to have something to do, and then hearing a spook house creak as the door opened. I didn't know where he was, but I knew that creak. Okay, I'm in one of the old science labs. Now what? I could hear his feet scuffing as he moved inside, and I looked back to the little potato dude for further instructions. Tell him to go into the broom closet behind the teacher's desk and find a door in there. I conveyed these instructions and heard him scoff as he took out his flashlight. There's no door in here, just bookshelves. If this is a trick, I swear I'm gonna. Tell him to pull on the left one closest to the door. The hidden door is behind that. It's the left one, closest to the door. It's behind there. I could hear the security guard sighing in exasperation. Sounds like some Scooby-Doo bullshit to me. But when I heard the scrape of a shelf coming off the wall on hinges, I knew he was on the right track. After the door creaked, there were more steps followed by a scrape of wood on tile as something slid open. It was freaky to hear it all from someone else's end, but it gave me confidence that he might actually find us. Okay, there's a door here, and he opened it, creating a metallic sound. There's a stairway that goes down into a basement. The security guy sounded a little less sure of himself now, and that was good because it meant he might actually take this seriously. If he thought we were college kids running a goof, then he would probably leave us to our fate. If he believed that we were real and that we were being real with him, then he might come and save us. I heard him descending the stairs with slow, deliberate steps, and when he came to the bottom, he gasped a little bit. What the hell is this? What do you see? I asked. Some Frankenstein shit. There's coils and glassware and all kinds of things. It's not dusty down here either. Looks like someone might have been living down here until very recently. This is wild. I guess you kids weren't kidding. There's a door on the left-hand side of the room. Tell him to go through there. Go through the... I started, but when I heard the thump of an old door being pushed open, I knew he had heard the little guy. Holy crap, he said. Suddenly there was a rush of air and a loud clatter. The heavy breathing I'd been listening to was gone, and the silence that replaced it was worrisome. Had something gotten him? Did Doc C have other experiments roaming around other than the little potato guy? Were they maybe a little more dangerous? Hey, are you okay? What's going on? There was nothing. Hey, answer me. Are you okay? Still nothing. Seriously, dude, are you... He's fine, the potato guy said, and I looked up in surprise. He's close now. I can sense his mind. He's very surprised by what he's found in that room. It's made him think a lot, made his mind create images. I felt a little sick watching the potato dude talk about it. His deformed tongue was sliding over his little stone teeth, and he'd have been salivating if he hadn't been floating in water. I realized this was how he ate, how he fed on others, and I was suddenly very glad that he couldn't do that to me. It was like watching something intimate, and it made me feel dirty. Hey, you still there? Security dude yelled, and I put the phone back to my ear as I told him I was. Good, sorry about that. It's just, some of this stuff is wild. I've never been in a science lab like this before. This is the weirdest place I've ever found myself in. Tell him we are on the far side of the room, the third door with the padlock on it, the potato dude said. I didn't bother to relay the message. I stood up and pounded on the door with my fist, shouting for him to come get us. I yelled that it was me, the guy on the phone, and he needed to get us out of here. I heard running on the phone, and then a minute later, I heard his voice as he spoke through the crack in the door. Hang tight, buddy. I'll have you out of there in a jiffy. I have to find something to break the lock with. The phone line went dead, but I hardly needed it anymore. I could hear him on the other side, rifling through things as he tried to find something to break the lock with. It was pretty clear that he believed us now, and the knowledge that we were actually in trouble made him remember his duty. Saving a couple of students from danger was probably one of those things the school gave you an accommodation for, and he wanted to look good for his boss. "That's right," the little potato thing whispered to itself. "You'll be a hero once you get us out of here. You'll let us out, and they'll know how great you are." "You okay?" I asked. But he shushed me as he continued to whisper, "You'll be a hero. You'll be the boss. And you can finally get a spot on the force with a feather in your cap like this, just like your father always wanted you to." From the sounds on the other side of the door, whatever the little guy was feeding him, it was working. After about 10 minutes, I guess he finally got desperate. "Step back from the door," he said. I'd taken only a couple of hesitant steps back before a loud bang came from the room. It was followed by 3 more loud pops, and I started to wonder if security dude had pulled out a gun. Whether he was a bad shot or the lock was just too thick, I don't know, but after the 4th shot I heard something thump against the outside of the door, followed by the door opening to reveal our savior. He was young, 19 or 20, with khaki pants and a dark blue polo that said campus security on it. He still had the gun in his hand, something I wasn't sure I'd seen any of the others carry. His blonde hair was all stuck up and his face looked flushed, but he was a welcome sight nonetheless. "Thank God," I breathed, walking over to shake his hand. He had opened his mouth to say something, but when he saw the little dude in the jar, his face turned like bad milk. Jesus Christ! What the holy hell is that?" he said, raising the gun to point it at the tank. He's a friend, I said, trying to assure him. He helped me guide you here. He won't..." But as I looked at the tank, I realized I might be wrong. The little dude had all his eyes open, and they were focused on our new friend. Security dude was staring back at him, and I saw that he'd begun to shake a little. The hand with the gun had especially began to shake, and he seemed to be losing a battle to keep it at his side. His eyes were locked on the little creature, whose multiple eyes were locked on his in turn. The veins in his head were starting to bulge. I took a step back, not sure what was going on here, and when the security dude started to scream, I saw his eyes roll up to the whites. His eyes began to leak, looking like he was crying blood, and when he fell over, I saw that blood was coming out of his ears too. We stood in silence for a few seconds before I could find the words to speak to the little dude. "What the hell was that?" "Sorry about that," the little potato guy said. "I was so hungry that healthy brain waves were too much to pass up." "So you killed him?" "To be fair, he was thinking about shooting me. It was right on top of his brain, and if I hadn't acted, he would have shattered my tank and possibly ended my life." He turned to look at me then. The feeling of those eyes on me was extremely unsettling. "I had to kill him, you understand. He was threatening me. And when you threaten someone, they're allowed to stand their ground. It was self-defense, plain and simple." The things he was saying were basically true, but didn't make the body lying on the floor any less terrible. "So what do we do now?" I asked, not sure what someone did with a dead body. "We leave him here. I would venture a guess that he isn't the only body down here. Are you ready to escape?" I nodded, grabbing my charger and my earbud case as I slid my phone into my pocket. The little dude's tank proved a bit more difficult, but not much. It was like carrying a fish tank, somewhere between a 5-gallon and a gallon bowl. As I started to settle it, I heard the last thing I expected to hear down here in the dark. Took a few minutes to click in all the insanity, but it was the theme song to Chips. I settled his tank on the table and looked back at the dead security dude, noticing the light flashing in his pocket. It quieted now, but as I approached, it started ringing again. It vibrated the pool of blood gathering around him, and I felt like a grave robber as I slid my hand into his pocket. Closing my eyes, I slid it out and looked at the screen, instantly feeling foolish. Did I expect to recognize the number? Did I think it would be someone I knew? As I slid the toggle to answer it, catching it on the fifth ring, I heard someone breathing heavily on the other end and said hello. "Officer Giraffe, this is Agent Max. We spoke a minute ago. Dr. Cranler hasn't been very forthcoming with information, so if you have any actual information about his latest experiment, we would very much like to take it into custody. Have you secured it yet?" I looked at the potato dude, but he didn't seem to have any answers. "Officer Giraffe, are you there? Hello?" I tossed the phone into the inky blackness of the next room and went back to scoop up the tank. It appeared that our times table had been moved up a little bit, depending on what security dude had told the Fed dude. "Get the keys," the little guy whispered, nodding his lumpy head at the officer dude. I nodded, seeing the wisdom in it as I unhooked them from his belt. I settled the tank in my arms as we headed into the room beyond. The security guy had been right. It was certainly something to see. There was a dim light that shone from the top of the ceiling, and I could see all kinds of things in the dark space. Silver tables, big tanks filled with liquid, small trays with instruments, and shelves upon shelves of things too small to make out. I suddenly wanted to see them all, to inspect every one of them, but I didn't have time. I did see that ours wasn't the only locked door. 3 others were still padlocked shut. What would I find behind those, I wondered, but I didn't have the time or the aim to investigate today. I jogged out of the room and into a little room that did look like it belonged to Dr. Frankenstein. A desk sat in front of a huge double shelf of books, and the rest of the room was taken up with more tables and electrical coils and all kinds of weird equipment. I didn't have names for all of it. It all pulled at me to come look, but I saw the stairs calling me louder, and I ran up them as fast as I dared and into the dusty old broom closet. We were heading through the silent classroom when we saw the flashlights through the windows. I crouched, the little dude making grumpy noises as he sloshed in the tank. Outside, there were about a dozen guys with lights searching around the building. It appeared that security dude had told them where we were, and now we were stuck. I looked at the tank, the lights and voices moving just outside the window, and asked the little dude if he knew another way out. "I don't know," the little potato guy said. "Let me think for a moment. Better think fast. They could be in here any minute." He floated and thought, all his eyes closing again, and I was forced to listen to the chatter just outside the window. "He said the R. Ashley Hall, right?" said a voice I recognized from the phone. "Yes, sir. He definitely indicated this building." "I can't raise him. It's possible he went in by himself, and whatever was in there eliminated him. We need to get inside. One of you go see if anyone else works security. I need keys to the building, and..." "I found it," the little guy said, turning me back to face him. "There's a back door and a spot one of the assistants went to smoke sometimes." "It's probably locked," I said, bemoaning our luck before remembering the ring of keys that were sitting in my pocket. "Which way?" I asked, getting up as I lifted the tank. "Last door on the left. It's a little kitchen area with a door to the outside." I stayed low, trying to make it under the windows as I duck-walked to the door. The hallway was dusty, the unused corridors particularly covered in it, and as I crept past the doors, I could hear voices headed from the front of the hall. That was good, because if they were all in the front, then no one was going to see me go out the back. I tried the door, but wasn't too surprised when it was locked. The ring of keys looked huge as I finagled it out of my pocket. I started trying them one at a time without any real clue which one was the right one. I had just found one that would slide into the lock when something hit the door hard enough to send dust flying everywhere. I almost dropped the keys, my fingers found in the middle of the ring as they slipped out of my hand. I found the key I had lost pretty quickly, and as I came through the door, I heard the front door starting to groan under the battering of the feds. I stumbled into the kitchen area, turning to close the door and lock it back. No sense making it easy for him. I went to the back door, and with some luck, the same key opened it as well. We went out the door and onto the lawn of the college before anyone was the wiser. We must have looked pretty wild as we made our escape through the low shrubs. We were staying low, me still hanging onto the tank for dear life, and when little dude shouted at me to get down, I sat down and put my back against a nearby tree. I sat there catching my breath, wondering why he'd told me to stop, when suddenly there was a flashlight around the back. I dared a little peek and saw a woman in a suit waving the light around as though looking for something. I popped back behind as she started sweeping our location and held the tank tightly as I prayed she wouldn't see us. The potato dude could roast her, but that would certainly draw attention. Our best bet was to stay clear and hope they moved on. Agent Fiss, report. Sir, the back door is open, and I held my breath, breathing slowly as I tried to keep my breathing from giving me away. Excellent work. That explains why the front door was locked. Officer Draft must have gone in through here. Let's go. We have our entry point. As they piled in, I noticed that her light was still trained on the area we crouched in. Sir, I was thinking that a search of the area might be in order. If the subject escaped through the back door, we could... There's no sign of forced entry on the door, Agent Fiss. It's more likely that this was how the officer entered the building. Come on, we may need every hand to bring this creature in. The lights retreated, and I finally felt like I could breathe safely again. We made tracks all the way back to my dorm room, and that is how me and the little dude became roommates. It's been pretty chill since then. Pato lives in my room now, and the two of us live pretty comfortably. He's looking better these days. All the creativity roaming the halls is enough for him to stay well fed without roasting anyone's coconut. He doesn't ask to be let out anymore either, and I set up a little TV for him so he can watch the outside world. He usually just watches smart guy stuff, but every Friday we have a little movie night, and I make him watch something less academic. We're watching Friday this week, though I'm pretty sure it'll go over his head. He's helping me with my science stuff too, and I'm thinking of changing my major to biochem next semester. He was right. He knows so much, and he's helping me know stuff too. I'm sure he's got an ulterior motive, but I don't mind. We seem to be living in a symbiotic relationship, as he says, and with the little dude's help, I can pass almost any test. He's starting to be able to beam stuff into my noggin too, so I guess we really are living simpatico. I'm still pretty careful to spend time on my phone so I don't get too creative. If I go full egghead, the little man might decide to make a tasty snack out of me too. You're still here. I thought you might be. Thanks for joining me for tonight's story. If your insatiable appetite for horror knows no bounds, might I suggest one of our playlists, or one of our previous stories in the archive? There should be one appearing at the end of the story any minute now. And of course, if you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If you prefer your horror a little more analog, you can always pick up one of my books. There's a link below to my latest, and it'll take you to all the great things that I've posted on Amazon. For my book lovers in the audience, I always suggest coming on down to Patreon so you can become part of my ghostly reader tier and get a book anytime I write one, which is usually about twice a year. Speaking of my patrons, let's go ahead and thank them, shall we? Thanks to Unicorn Hollow for being our spooky ghost contributor. Thanks to Janet and Lady Vengeance for being our spooky skeleton tier contributors. Thanks to Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you think you might like to support the show in a more monetary fashion, come on down to Patreon. I have many tiers. I'm sure you'll find one that suits you best. I always recommend the Ghostly Reader tier, since you get a signed book anytime I write one on your doorstep. But I have many tiers, and again, I'm sure you'll find one to suit you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.